So guys, today I'm talking about a very specialized way to preserve wood, whether it's already been treated, pressure treated, or if it's never been treated in any way. If it's raw wood that's been cut at a sawmill and it's never had any type of chemicals added to it. This greenhouse, I have to water it once a week, so the wood behind me on these shelves is completely saturated once a week for the entire winter, and it looks brand new. The wood is in great shape. There's no evidence of mold or rot. But I did a very special treatment with this white powder right here. That's all that's on it. It doesn't change the color of the wood, but it protects it in some cases for probably, and I know for a fact, I'm going to show you some photographs of a deck my father built 30 years ago, 1995, and I'm going to put the pictures right here, let you see them. Now this has never had any type of paint on, any type of added stain, and it's actually untreated 2x4's, and we treated it with a very special process. So after you look at those pictures, you can see that the deck is not new. It was built in 1995, and so it is still in great shape. No rot, no insect damage, and that's another great thing that this powder will protect against is termites and carpenter ants. So there's a lot of different issues with wood, but in that particular deck, it is in partial shade, so it's not sunlight all day. So when it rains, there's a lot of water that stands on that deck, but again, no visible damage on it. It's lasted for decades. Now, it could use a pressure washing, and you might want to retreat it with this process, but in current shape, it looks perfect. Now, the product, you are going to find this hard to believe, but it's just simple borax washing powder. You can get this for around $5, $5 or $6 per container. Online, I think it was that much. If you go to the store and get it, it's probably under $5, but this is the product we use. I'm going to show you the process we use, and it's a very specific process that you have to do for treated or untreated wood. You can go either way, because most people think when they buy treated wood at their local lumberyard, big box store, that if it says treated, severe weather, it should last for a long time. Well, that's not exactly true anymore, because arsenic is one of the ingredients that they've removed from this treatment process, and the wood will rot twice as fast as it ever did, maybe even 3 times as fast. So arsenic was a key ingredient in wood treatment, and it's not there anymore. So we have to have something that's going to stop that fungal growth, the insect damage, because the current treatment method just breaks down too quickly. So this is the trick, but I'm going to show you the specific way to make this work. Now, the mixture rate of this, we did 2 cups per 2 gallons. So we had a 2-gallon container similar to this one, and we got the water almost to a boil. We had a hot plate out on the back deck with an extension cord, added a 2-cup container and put 2 gallons of water in here, and then let it come to almost a boil. We don't want it to be a rolling boil, we want the water right there where you're starting to see the boil. So you'll need a type of hot plate where you can adjust the temperature. But again, adding 2 cups per 2 gallons. So basically it's just 1 to 1, 1 gallon, 1 cup of the borax powder. Now I'm going to show you some other things that you can add to this. This will not leave any visible staining type of color. It might leave a little bit of white powder residue which can easily be knocked off, but what we're trying to do is we're trying to get this freshly cut lumber to draw in the moisture which contains the boric acid or the borax powder. There's actually another product you can buy that's even more potent. Now, although this contains a type of boric acid, you can buy pure boric acid. It's something like 99 point something percent, and this is what I was using around the garden for insect issues. But you can buy containers a lot larger than this, $20, $30, and you'll get a lot more potent recipe. But the reason you want to do that, if you live in a high moisture environment somewhere like the Pacific Northwest where you're just constantly getting rain, if you're away from a desert area and there's just way too much rain, use something like this rather than the borax, because this is going to be much more potent. The wood will absorb it and your wood will last quite a bit longer. There's one more additive I'm going to talk about in addition to just using this, the borax powder or the boric acid. Now, this deck right here I built last year, and there's no evidence of any staining on it. You can see that it looks like it's just pure lumber that's been cut. I didn't want to have a stain look about it, so I just did the borax treatment on this particular fence. But I'll show you another area where I did want some staining appearance on it. So this is exactly what a borax treated fence looks like. It's in great shape. It's been up for over a year now, and it still looks like brand new. So there's no evidence of any staining, wood rot, any type of funguses growing on it, and especially termites. We have a tremendous problem with termites in our area, and I always check right at the base there to make sure there's no evidence of any termites. So it keeps insects as well as fungal issues from starting, which ultimately leads to wood rot and the collapse of your deck, fence, or any type of outdoor wood products you have. Now I built this closeted area to store some things away, such as a barbecue grill and all the other things, the accessories that go with it. But what I did is I treated it first with a boric acid or the borax powder first, and then I went back and treated it with used motor oil. Now if you're curious about why I did that, I'll put a link to the video right here, but basically we're doing double duty on this because I wanted to make sure this lasted as long as possible. So I did not only the boric acid or borax powder first, then we went back and did a treatment where I could have a nice stain look without buying some overpriced stain. Now I've got a two-step process. I've got some really hot water here, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our boric acid powder and add our 2 cups to it. And the reason I'm doing this in 2 steps, I want to make sure it's completely dissolved in our water. So we're going to stir this for a couple minutes to make sure it's completely dissolved in the water before we add it to our near boiling water on our hot plate. So just take it, put it in some really hot tap water, as hot as you can get it, and then stir it for like 60 seconds or a little bit more, and then in the meantime, allow your water that's on your hot plate to be heating up to a near boil, but not a rolling boil. You just want it to be a very, very slight boil, just the beginning stages of a boil. So just mix this, and then we'll go on to the next step. Now, in addition to the funguses that are going to cause wood rot on your deck or whatever you're building outdoors, this will also take care of carpenter ants. It will take care of types of wood boring beetles and things like that. Even wood boring bees will get into this, and it will actually stop them from drilling their perfectly round holes into it. So carpenter ants, termites, things like that is going to stop. So it does double duty. Not only is it stopping wood rot from forming, but it's stopping all the insects that are going to attack those deck areas. The other great thing about this is once this is dry, it's extremely low toxicity. So while it's in its wet form, you don't want any type of animal licking the wood or anything like that. So if you have dogs or cats around, make sure you keep them away. I don't think they would do that anyways, because I'm sure there's not a good taste of this. I'm sure it's quite bitter. So just remember, as you're doing this, keep kids and pets away from it until it's completely dry. But the dust you'll see afterwards, you can just wipe that down with a towel. It'll come off, and it's not highly toxic to people. Also, when you're starting it, don't breathe the dust as you're mixing it. But again, this is used as a common additive to washing clothes. Now about application, there's really 3 basic ways you can apply this to any wood, and it all depends on the size of the lumber that you're trying to treat. If you've got 8-foot lengths, you can take some plastic and make a trough out of it and then pour it in there. It may take 5 or 6 gallons to completely fill the trough so that the piece of lumber is submerged each time you put a new piece of lumber in. The second way will be to do a type of mist spraying, all sides, front, top, back, especially the cut portions. Wherever the lumber has been cut, that's where you want it to absorb the maximum amount. Once it's absorbed into the wood, it crystallizes and forms a protective barrier. So not only on the outside, but actually inside the wood is protected. So that's the 3 ways: is you can do submersion, you can do the mist spraying, and you can apply it directly with a brush, which is the way we did it 30 years ago. So depending on your time and how large the project is, you can do it in several different ways of application. Now, if the building you're wanting to protect has already been built, I had a lawnmower shed that was completely finished and it was delivered to the site, so I didn't have a chance to treat it before it was all put together. So I took my sprayer, filled it up with extremely hot mixture. We don't want it to cool down. We want it to be as hot as possible, so we'll have a lot of absorption into the wood. And I just went around the inside, wore some face protection so I didn't breathe anything, also eye protection, sprayed the inside of it, the rafters, everywhere inside, and that lawnmower shed still looks just exactly as it did the day it was delivered 15 years ago. Now, as I said earlier, that borax is slightly different than boric acid. It's a little bit more concentrated and strong in this. So if you're living in an area where you have a lot of insect problems, then you want to do 1 cup of boric acid and 1 cup, and this is per gallon, 1 cup of the borax powder. Mix both of them together so it does double duty for you. So this is going to help a lot more with insects, and this will help with your wood rots and things like that, the types of funguses that can cause the wood to prematurely start to decompose. So again, I didn't have this product years ago. We only had 30 years ago we did this. We just had some of this in the laundry room, used it, and it's done an excellent job of protecting that 30-year-old deck with minimal issues. Yeah, it doesn't look great if you go back and look at the pictures, but it's still standing and there's no major problems with rot. There may be a crack here and there because it has been out in the hot sun for quite a number of summers over the last 30 years. Now, the easier way to apply this, if you have plywood siding on whatever you have, shed, building, barn, whatever it is, you can take a roller like this. If it's already in place, you can go over this 2 or 3 times, roll over it twice, allow it to dry, and then go back and then do another coat. So 2 coats I would recommend on plywood, because that's going to be constantly being bombarded by rain, storms, and things like that, and it's probably going to be much more chance at risk of causing wood rot to develop. So using a roller like this, again, 2 or 3 passes and then 2 coats. Now, it doesn't really matter which of the 3 methods you did to apply it, whether it was submersion, painting on with a roller or brush, or even fan spraying it with a fine mist. You want to give it at least 24 hours to fully absorb before you do anything with it, before you start working with it, cutting it. And if you do make a cut on it, remember, those ends may not be completely protected, maybe 1 millimeter or 2 around the outside, but once you make a cut, you might want to go back and brush some more on just on the end. So it's kind of hard to keep track of it, but as you make a cut, just have your solution right there so you can brush it on to make sure that there's not an exposed end, because a lot of people forget about that. The absorption is not going to go to the center of the wood. So once you cut an end off, you want to make sure that you're treating it so that everywhere that there's a possible exposure to wood rot or any type of insect is completely covered with the borax solution. Now, borax itself is not going to do any damage to any screws, metal fasteners, or anything like that, so you don't have to worry about corrosion. But you do want to make sure that you just give that full coating of it. Anytime you apply 2 coats, I think you're going to be much better off than just doing 1. So a lot of people will just do 1 coat, but you have to take into consideration what is the humidity levels in your area in the summertime, how much rain do you get, and one factor that most people never think about is your deck or fence in a heavily shaded area, because when it's in full sunlight, I had this same problem many years ago in a different house, that the deck area was in a shaded area, would get rain come in, and then it wouldn't dry properly. It would stay wet for a number of days before it dried out. So if your deck is under a very shaded area, you want to make sure that you do 2 coats and maybe even 3, because that wood needs to dry out as quickly as possible after a rain event. Now, the mixture is mildly alkaline and it can irritate the skin, so make sure you're wearing a good pair of chemical gloves if you're doing a lot of painting over a period of days. This will keep your skin from being very, I wouldn't say damaged, but it can be irritated over time. So just make sure you have a good pair of chemical gloves while you're doing the process. Now, the deck I showed you at the very beginning, there's never been a second coat of the borax powder added to it, and it has been pressure washed a couple of times, but as I said, that deck is pretty much in sunlight all day, so it dries pretty good, and I think it absorbed quite a bit because the wood we bought was very dry when we installed it, and it absorbed a lot of it. But if you're doing this and you're afraid that you pressure washed it and you might have washed some of the borax off a couple of years, 2 or 3 years after you did the initial treatment, it's not a bad idea to do a second or third treatment just in case, to make your wood last as long as possible, because lumber prices have gone through the wood roof. Now, as I mentioned, you can do this on untreated lumber, but you can also do it on treated lumber, because arsenic is no longer part of the preservative they put in there. I think that started around 03, 04. So what used to last for decades in properly treated wood, in my opinion, arsenic was a really important component that's no longer part of the preservative process. Now, as I showed you, the deck area where I built the closet, that has been stained with the used motor oil. But what I would say is okay to go stain this after the fact. If you want to buy some really expensive stain, which I try to avoid because at 5 gallons and $200, it's just really expensive. So I opted for that second choice of using the used motor oil, and I thought it did a pretty nice job. Now, I think there's 2 coats on there, so that's not just 1 coat. That's why it's a little bit darker than it would normally be off just 1 coat. So you can stain it by whatever your preferred stain is after you've done the treatment with the borax. So if you really wanted your wood to last a lifetime, I would recommend doing all 3. And of course, you want to do this at separate times. You want to do the boric acid and the borax powder first. Allow that to completely dry, and then once you've installed the wood wherever you need it, whether you're building a shed, a deck, a fence, then do the oil, the used motor oil trick. Those 3 combined, I think you will have a lifetime of protection. And also the parts of the wood that are going into the ground, your post, you want to make sure you treat those even stronger. So having something like a 5-gallon bucket, pour up the borax powder into that, and then allow it to sit overnight, 12 to 24 hours, to absorb as much of that as possible, because you want the boric acid to do double duty, and the borax powder, I should say, to do double duty for the longest amount of time possible, because that's the part that's going to be most in contact with the soil and mostly wet every time it rains. So guys, I have a Patreon, and rather than having this video go on for an hour, I just created as long and detailed of a PDF as possible, so you can take a look at that, download it, save it, and become a member of the Patreon. I really would appreciate it, because that really helps the channel grow. So taking a look at that is going to give you a lot more detailed information, especially about insects, the longevity of it, and things like that. So take a look there, and you can download that. You can save it to your device, or actually you can print it off. So guys, for this project, I'm actually building raised garden beds, and the reason I'm not using pressure treated wood is I don't want to take a chance on anything getting into the soil. So you can use this. This is very safe. Gardeners often use borax and boric acid in the garden to keep insects away, so it's one of the safest things you can use in the garden. So doing this will save you a lot of time, energy, effort, and especially money. So guys, I really appreciate you watching. If you have any questions about this video or any previous video, and there's a catalog now of over 300 different videos, from everything from gardening to bonsai to making do-it-yourself projects, heaters in the greenhouse, I've talked about that. So I talk about everything from A to Z there on the video. So if you have a question about any of those previous videos, please leave a comment down below and I'll answer you as quick as possible. If you're a member of the channel, if you're a subscriber, I'll put those to the very front of the line. I get so many questions and comments, it's hard to read and answer all of them. So if you'll please do that first, become a subscriber, that would be greatly appreciated. Have a great day.